Usually, when we talk about a massive monopoly, there's this expectation of a physical choke point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like standardizing the railroads back in the 19th century.
Mm.
That's a classic example.
Right, exactly. You control the physical tracks and, well, you basically control the entire transportation industry. The power dynamic is clean, it's visible, and undeniably tangible.
It is the ultimate bottleneck. And, historically, that kind of physical leverage is where the absolute greatest fortunes in industry are built.
So today, when we look at the artificial intelligence boom, that physical choke point is undeniably Nvidia. I mean, they are the undisputed king of AI hardware.
Yeah, they're manufacturing those highly specialized silicon chips that literally every major tech company on Earth is just fighting over right now.
Exactly. But when you step into the actual strategy behind their current dominance, that clean binary power dynamic of just selling physical goods gets incredibly murky.
Oh, totally, Marky. It's fascinating.
So welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to unpack a strategic bombshell that NVIDIA just dropped on the AI ecosystem. We are pulling from a massive stack of recent financial disclosures, technical white papers, and industry analysis to understand a move that feels, well, entirely counterintuitive for a hardware giant.
It really does. And I think the shift we're examining is just critical for anyone trying to understand where technology is heading.
Right.
Whether you are casually following the AI boom or, investing in the tech sector or actually writing the code for these new applications yourself, the dynamic is fundamentally changing.
Yeah, the hidden battlefield of the AI war is no longer just about who builds the fastest physical chips.
No, it is entirely about who controls the invisible software ecosystem surrounding them.
So let's lay out the foundational fact from the data we're looking at today, because the scale of it is just staggering. NVIDIA is committing $26 billion over the next 5 years.
$26 billion.
Yeah. And they are doing this purely to build open source AI models. I mean, they are pouring the GDP of a small country into developing cutting edge software only to turn around and give it away to the public for absolutely free.
Right. A hardware monopoly burning billions to create free software is a massive plot twist.
It's just nuts.
It really is.
Yeah.
And to really grasp the magnitude of this, we have to look at their traditional business model. So in the classic analogy of the AI gold rush, NVIDIA has always been the company selling the picks and shovels.
Which is universally understood to be the safest, most profitable place to be in any boom.
Exactly.
You don't take the wild financial risk of digging for the gold yourself, right?
Yeah.
You just sell the specialized tools to the thousands of companies who think they are going to strike it rich. They have enjoyed total leverage in the physical world.
And selling those tools has made them one of the most valuable companies in human history.
Yeah, literally.
But the recent financial and strategic data suggests they've realized that merely supplying the picks and shovels is, well, it's no longer enough to guarantee their survival.
Okay, here is an analogy that really clarifies this pivot for me. Imagine a company that manufactures the absolute best physical car engine block in the world.
Okay, I like this.
Right. Every automaker wants this engine. But suddenly, this hardware manufacturer decides to spend $26 billion to develop state-of-the-art fuel injection software.
The most advanced software ever created for a vehicle.
Exactly. And instead of selling it, they just give it away for free to anyone building a car. It's amazing software, everyone downloads it, but there's a catch.
There's always a catch.
Right. That software is fundamentally hard-coded to only fire correctly and efficiently inside their specific physical engine block.
That captures the mechanism perfectly. NVIDIA is evolving the gold rush metaphor. I mean, they aren't just selling the tools anymore.
Right.
They were spending $26 billion to literally draw the map to the gold mine. And they are designing that map so that every single road inevitably forces you to drive through their physical toll booths.
Drawing the map to the gold mine? Wow. So by building the most advanced open source AI models, NVIDIA is providing the foundational software that millions of developers will use to build the future of AI.
Yes.
And by drawing that specific map, they ensure that the whole economic boom continues to flow directly and exclusively through their specific hardware architecture.
Exactly. It's not charity in the slightest.
No, not at all.
It is incredibly calculated self-preservation.
Self-preservation driven by a very specific emerging threat. I mean, the analysis we're reviewing today points to a clear catalyst for this defense strategy. NVIDIA is acting out of a deep existential fear of what is happening in the overseas open source community.
Yeah, the threat isn't coming from, another American hardware giant like AMD or Intel making a slightly faster chip.
Right. It's not a hardware war.
No, the threat is coming from software models being released by overseas entities, specifically DeepSeek and Alibaba.
Oh,
These organizations are releasing incredibly capable, highly efficient open source models into the wild. And the absolute linchpin of this entire situation, the detail that changes everything, is that some of these overseas models are being trained on Huawei chips.
Okay. And it's worth noting here for you listening, because it's so easy to get distracted by the daily headlines. Our focus today isn't on the geopolitical trade wars or, the tensions between the U.S. and China.
Right, absolutely.
We are looking purely at the technological chessboard. We are just impartially reporting the landscape from the sources. And from a strict business strategy perspective, the emergence of DeepSeek and Alibaba models trained on Huawei hardware presents a fascinating structural threat to Nvidia's entire monopoly.
It really does.
But wait, I have to push back on this premise for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
If Nvidia's physical chips are objectively the fastest, most capable hardware on the market right now, if they are the gold standard that every major tech company is hoarding, why should Nvidia care what software a couple of developers are using in a startup garage?
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah. Doesn't the best hardware always win in the end? I mean, if an Alibaba model is truly great, wouldn't a developer just take that free software and run it on the fastest, best Nvidia chip anyway?
That is the logical assumption, definitely. But it completely ignores the brutal reality of how AI software and hardware actually interact at a microscopic level.
Okay, how so?
It comes down to the deep mechanics of software optimization. An AI model isn't just a list of abstract mathematical instructions floating in the cloud.
Right.
During the months it takes to train a massive model, the software literally learns to break down its calculations based on the specific physical layout and memory architecture of the chip it is running on.
Oh, wow. So it's adapting to the physical geography of the processor itself.
Exactly. It maps its mathematical shortcuts to the specific parallel processing pipelines and memory bandwidth of that exact hardware.
That's wild.
Yeah, the code essentially learns to speak the native, highly specialized dialect of that chip. So if DeepSeek trains a brilliant new model on a massive cluster of Huawei chips, that software is permanently, inherently hard-coded to run most efficiently on Huawei architecture.
Ah. Okay, so if a developer tries to take that Huawei-optimized DeepSeek model and run it on an Nvidia chip, what happens?
It will run, sure, but it will be clumsy.
Clumsy.
Yeah, the mathematical shortcuts the software learned no longer align perfectly with the physical pathways of the Nvidia chip. It becomes computationally inefficient.
So it's wasting energy.
Exactly. It uses more power, it takes more time, and ultimately it costs significantly more money to operate at scale. And this creates a terrifying domino effect for Nvidia.
Let's walk through that domino effect, because I think this is the core of the invisible battlefield. Imagine a lean startup with a small team of developers.
Okay.
They see this amazing open source model from DeepSeek. It's totally free, it's incredibly powerful, and it solves their specific problem perfectly.
A classic scenario.
Right, so they download it and start building their application on top of it. Now, at this stage, they don't care about the underlying hardware architecture at all. They just want the best free software tool available to get their app off the ground.
Developers are inherently pragmatic. They take the path of least resistance to get a working product.
Yeah.
But here is where the Trojan horse dynamic kicks in. Let's say that startup's application goes viral. Suddenly, they have millions of users.
A good problem to have.
Right, but they outgrow their local servers and need to rent massive amounts of physical computing power from a cloud provider like AWS or Azure just to keep the app running.
And when they look at the cloud pricing sheets, they have a choice between renting servers powered by Nvidia chips or servers powered by Huawei chips.
Precisely. And because the foundational software they built their entire company on was originally optimized for Huawei chips during its creation, well, they're going to find that renting Huawei servers is 40% cheaper and runs their specific code twice as fast.
Oh, man. So the decision basically makes itself.
It really does. The startup chooses the rival hardware. And when thousands of startups make that exact same purely economic decision, the massive cloud providers stop buying as many Nvidia chips and start buying millions of Huawei chips to meet the developer demand.
The software literally dictates the hardware.
Exactly.
If developers worldwide adopt DeepSeek or Alibaba models simply because they are incredible pieces of free engineering, that software acts as a Trojan horse.
Yes.
The developers' reliance on those non-NVIDIA optimized models slowly, quietly makes NVIDIA's physical chips economically irrelevant.
The hardware monopoly crumbles. And not because someone built a vastly superior physical chip, but because the global software ecosystem simply stopped speaking NVIDIA's native language.
That is insane.
It completely inverts the traditional power dynamic of the tech world. The software becomes the actual bottleneck governing the success of the physical hardware.
That is a staggering vulnerability for a company that seems so invincible. Nvidia could have the greatest physical fabrication plants in the world, churning out the most advanced silicon known to man, and it wouldn't matter at all if the global developer community is building all their new toys on a software foundation that fundamentally prefers a competitor's architecture.
Which perfectly explains the $26 billion.
Right.
Once you understand that Huawei-optimized software is a Trojan horse, you realize NVIDIA is basically backed into a corner. I mean, they cannot force developers to stop downloading free, highly capable software from overseas.
So their only defense is to enter that exact same open source arena and completely dominate it.
That's the play.
If developers want free maps, NVIDIA has to draw the biggest, most detailed, most irresistible map ever created to keep developers locked into their own physical ecosystem.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to the specific weapon at the center of this strategy. The technical specs we're looking at detail the release of Nemotron 3 Super.
Yeah, and the scale of Nemotron 3 Super is exactly what you would expect from a trillion-dollar company fighting for its absolute survival at the top of the tech food chain.
Right.
It is a defense strategy executed through overwhelming offensive force.
Looking at the technical breakdown, Nemotron 3 Super is described as a 128 billion parameter beast that is currently crushing industry benchmarks.
Crushing them.
We hear massive numbers thrown around a lot in the AI space, but 128 billion parameters, what does that actually mean for the developer sitting at their computer?
Well, to put parameters into perspective without getting bogged down in linear algebra, you can think of parameters as the individual synaptic connections within the model's artificial brain.
Okay, makes sense.
They dictate how much context the model can hold, how nuanced its reasoning can be, and how vast its functional knowledge base is. So training a 128 billion parameter model from scratch is not a side project.
Definitely not.
It requires an unfathomable amount of raw computing power, months of uninterrupted training time, and a massive team of elite researchers.
Which totally accounts for that jaw-dropping $26 billion price tag over 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
They are throwing immense financial gravity at the problem. My theory here is that NVIDIA is using the pure, overwhelming performance of Nemotron 3 Super as a kind of black hole for developer attention.
A black hole is a great way to conceptualize it.
Think about that startup developer we talked about earlier, the one just looking for the best free tool. If NVIDIA suddenly drops a 128 billion parameter model that literally shatters all the reasoning and coding benchmarks, its gravity is so massive, its performance is so undeniably superior that the developer won't even glance at competing models from Alibaba or DeepSeek.
Right.
NVIDIA is using the sheer mass of Nemotron 3 Super to pull the entire developer ecosystem back into their specific orbit.
By handing the absolute best performing software in the world to developers on a silver platter entirely for free, NVIDIA instantly neutralizes the core incentive to experiment with those overseas alternatives. I mean, why risk building your company on a different ecosystem if NVIDIA is already giving you a Ferrari for free?
And here is the crucial part of the trap. Because NVIDIA is the one who built, trained, and released Nemotron 3 Super.
It is inherently deeply optimized to run exclusively and flawlessly on NVIDIA's physical hardware architecture.
Boom, there it is.
Yeah, the mathematical shortcuts, the memory mapping, the parallel processing pipelines, all of it is perfectly tailored to speak NVIDIA's language natively.
It neutralizes the Huawei hardware threat in a single massive move.
Completely.
They secure their physical monopoly from the top down. They essentially say to the global developer community, here is the most powerful digital tool ever created. Use it. Build your incredible applications on it. Become entirely dependent on its 128 billion parameter architecture.
And then months later, when those applications succeed and need immense physical computing power to run for millions of end users, the only logical, economically viable choice of hardware to rent or buy will be NVIDIA chips. Trying to run an application built on Nemotron 3 Super on a rival's hardware would be incredibly inefficient.
Yeah.
It would be like trying to run that state-of-the-art fuel injection software on an engine block it wasn't designed to talk to.
So the $26 billion is essentially the world's most expensive insurance policy.
Yep.
It guarantees that the future of global software development continues to perfectly align with the future of NVIDIA's hardware manufacturing.
But, you know, this strategy does carry a profound inherent risk. And I think it's crucial we address the potential failure state of this move.
The idea that it might not work, let's explore that. Because developers are notoriously smart, cynical people.
Very much so.
If they can clearly see that Nemotron 3 Super is essentially a beautifully gilded cage designed to lock them into buying expensive Nvidia hardware forever, might the open source community actively reject it out of principle? We've seen developers rebel against corporate lock-in before.
Oh, it's a very real vulnerability in their plan.
Sure.
The open source community thrives on flexibility and vendor neutrality. If developers feel that using Nemotron 3 Super permanently shackles them to NVIDIA's pricing models for cloud compute, there could be a massive grassroots effort to fork the model, strip out the NVIDIA-specific optimizations, and forcefully adapt it for broader hardware compatibility.
Or they might just intentionally choose to build on the slightly less powerful Alibaba models purely to maintain their hardware independence.
Historically, however, pragmatism usually beats principle in the tech sector.
True.
If the performance gap between Nemotron 3 Super and the vendor-neutral alternatives is wide enough, developers will swallow their pride and use the better tool.
Right.
The financial pressure to build the best possible application usually overrides the philosophical desire for hardware independence. NVIDIA is betting $26 billion that sheer performance will always conquer ideology.
It's a fascinating inversion of how we normally think about value. We are so conditioned to view the physical, tangible thing, the silicon chip, as the ultimate prize.
Yeah.
But the war to protect that physical prize is being waged entirely in the invisible open-source digital realm. The boundaries between hardware companies and software companies are completely collapsing.
You cannot maintain a monopoly in the physical world without totally controlling the digital ecosystem that sits on top of it.
Which brings us to the end of this deep dive into NVIDIA's shifting landscape. Let's recap the magnitude of the journey we just took.
Sounds good.
NVIDIA is no longer just a chip manufacturer. Driven by a very real, very potent threat of overseas models from DeepSeek and Alibaba acting as Trojan horses for rival hardware architectures, NVIDIA is fundamentally altering its corporate identity.
They're committing $26 billion over a 5-year period to build and release Nemotron 3 Super, which is a 128 billion parameter benchmark-crushing behemoth.
And they are giving away this immensely complex software completely for free. Not out of generosity, but as an offensive maneuver to ensure the global developer community remains locked into their specific architecture. They are drawing the definitive map of the AI landscape just to ensure every single digital road leads directly back to an NVIDIA physical processor.
It is ecosystem control executed on a scale that is almost hard to comprehend.
And the main takeaway for you listening is this. The next time you read a headline about a massive, unbelievable leap in open source AI software, don't just look at the capabilities of the software itself.
Right. Look past the code.
Look at the hardware companies standing behind it, funding it, and paying for the server farms to train it. Because the battle for the multi-trillion-dollar future of physical silicon is being waged almost entirely through the distribution of free software.
The map dictates the shovel. The ecosystem is the actual product.
It leaves us with an entirely new perspective on the future of the tech industry. And I actually want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over as you watch this space evolve.
Oh, this is a good one.
We've established that the undisputed king of physical hardware, a company with an absolute monopoly on AI chips, is willing to spend $26 billion to build and give away a state-of-the-art AI model for free, purely as a defense mechanism to protect its physical chip sale.
It's the ultimate loss leader.
Exactly. But what does that economic reality mean for pure software companies trying to survive in this space?
Yeah, think about that.
If the most powerful, complex software in the world is effectively being subsidized and given away for free by hardware giants just to push Silicon Can, a standalone AI software business, actually survive the future, if you are trying to sell an AI model, how do you compete with a trillion-dollar hardware monopoly that is actively trying to give a better version away for free?